Tonight, the community is remembering one of the lives lost in yesterday's windstorm and why she was named a tireless advocate for kids.
My first thought was it looked like a tree was taking a nap on the chapel.
And Coeur d'Alene's oldest church suffered severe damage from the windstorm. We'll let you know how they're now fixing up this 140-year-old building. Still ahead.
Winds look to remain calm throughout the entire weekend, but now I'm tracking a few small chances of both rain and snow showers.
Well, take a look at this new drone video of storm damage at Comstock Park. My goodness, this is what the aftermath looks like today. Dozens of trees uprooted, fences broken on Spokane's South Hill. New this afternoon, the city of Spokane has closed Comstock Park while crews work on that area. There's still a possibility that trees weakened in the storm could fall. Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 5. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
Welcome everyone. I'm Whitney Ward. Today we are also learning more about the woman who died in yesterday's windstorm. She has now been identified as a well-loved pediatrician and hospitalist at Schreiner's Children's Hospital in Spokane. 42-year-old Melanie Sanborn was killed when a tree fell onto her car at 27th and Post on Spokane's South Hill. Today, the medical examiner ruled her death an accident. And today, the chief of staff at Schreiner's released a statement about her passing, saying Melanie was a tireless advocate for kids and beloved by her patients. She provided care for our children undergoing surgery and personally managed the specialty clinics for our kids living with osteogenesis imperfecta and muscular dystrophy. Her loss to our staff, patients, and families will be felt for some time.
John Schneider, a 59-year-old man from Post Falls, also died during the storm yesterday. He was driving on Highway 97 just east of Coeur d'Alene and south of I-90 when a tree came off the hillside and hit his car. He died from the injuries at the scene. Now to some breaking news tonight. Avista has released an estimated time of when power will be restored to different areas.
Our own Ian Smay is joining us now live in the newsroom with the list as well as a look at the current outages at this hour. Ian?
That's right, Whitney and Mark. Avista released that list of estimated restoration times earlier this afternoon. But one thing to keep in mind is that they are just estimates and they may differ from person to person. But we have that list for you now. Let's take a look. So for Spokane, the nearest time that they might think that everyone could get their power back, Sunday at 6 p.m. Then if you look over at Coeur d'Alene, where actually more Avista customers are without power right now, that will be Saturday at about 10 p.m. That's when they think a good majority of people could start seeing it. But again, that could change. Those further north in Sandpoint should see the power back by 3 p.m. tomorrow. But the other big area without power is Kellogg. Avista says more than 10,000 people are without power there, and there is currently no estimated restoration time. Remember, those times are just estimates and may differ from person to person. But now let's take a look at the current outage map for Avista. If you look here, again, still all the way up to the Canadian border. But one thing to note, it kind of seems to end just right about in line with Spokane. So as you go south, it looks like all the power's back, down here, Colfax, the Pullman, Moscow area. But one thing to note right now, they're sitting at about 32,500 people without power, and about 12,500 of those are in Spokane. But something new just in the last hour, more customers seem to be out in the Coeur d'Alene area where it sits at about 15,500 at this time. But now let's take a look at the Kootenai Electric Cooperative map. Now, you see here, it goes all the way still, just like last night, down in Plummer, all the way up to Lake Pend Oreille. But one thing to note, Lake Coeur d'Alene, a lot more people than last night. This is like a Christmas tree last night. A lot more people in patches around the lake starting to get their power back. Up near Hayden Lake, still a lot of people out from Hayden Lake up to Lake Pend Oreille. But again, this is also a lot better than last night. A lot more red there. Last night, they're sitting at about 7,000 people without power still. And finally, let's take a look at the Inland Power and Light map. That map, most of their outages still based in the Spokane County area, just a few up here in Bonner County in North Idaho. There's one single customer out in Lincoln County. And again, just some people in the more rural parts of Whitman County still without power right now. And they are sitting at about 3,500 people at last check that do not have their lights on. Now, one company, Vera Power and Light, has said that all customers now have their power back. To keep up with the latest updates on power outages in the Northwest, or to see the full list of estimated restoration times for Avista, go to krem.com or text outages to 509-448-2000. Mark, Whitney, back to you.
Ian, thank you very much. Well, you just heard the numbers. A lot of people are facing several more days without power as overnight lows are set to dip below freezing.
Our Casey Decker is joining us live here on the South Hill tonight with an update on how crews are responding, the progress they're making, and what resources might be available to people who need help. Casey.
Well, the neighborhood we are in right now is starting to see some homes and some streetlights regain their power. But according to that Avista outage map, still more than 300 customers without electricity right now. And that same site says they may not get it back until Sunday night. It's a similar scene that we're seeing throughout the region. Avista told us this morning they do have more crews out working on transformers and on lines, but debris and difficult terrain still pose a lot of challenges. Before they can actually begin restoring power, they have to assess the scene and make sure things are safe for their workers. Today they said they'll actually bring in helicopters to help with that. For many folks, it'll even be a little while before they get an accurate estimate for when they'll get their power back. Now, you might remember during the 2015 storm, shelters were set up to help people stay warm or to power up their devices. But because of COVID, the city and the Red Cross say they aren't able to set up such shelters again this time.
Of course, this year we don't have the ability to have our libraries as either gathering spots or charging stations. They're not open to the public right now due to the pandemic. And the lack of ability to gather.
Congregate sheltering, which is what we call it, is not the best option right now. And so we're working with folks on an individual basis and meeting their needs as best we can.
Trying to establish any central places for people to go was just deemed too time-consuming and risky compared to trying to target services directly.
That often takes quite a bit of time and back and forth with health officials to make sure that we are following that guidance and we're not actually doing additional harm.
So what should people do if they need help? Call a hotline like 311 or 211 and they'll try to direct you to services.
Depending on their specific needs, but we can help them find temporary shelter. We can give them food, clothing, medical supplies, things like that.
Priority is going to people whose homes were severely damaged, especially if they're now uninhabitable, and to those with urgent medical needs. One possible bright side, this windstorm compared to 2015 didn't last quite as long. Another big one, the weather is better this time around. It's not quite as cold out as it was in 2015. I'm told that helps crews a little bit in terms of the speed of their ability to repair these power lines. And of course, it also reduces the danger level for not having heat right now. Reporting on the South Hill tonight, Casey Decker, KREM 2 News.
Casey, thank you very much for the update tonight. And now we turn our attention to North Idaho. This is a pretty shocking photo just from yesterday's storm. This came from KREM viewer Ginny. A large tree completely smashed her car. And obviously you can see several other cars look like they were also damaged in that neighborhood. If you have a weather photo or even a video that you would like to share with us of something that you saw, storm damage perhaps, just download the KREM 2 mobile app. You can submit your photos and videos through the Near Me section right there on your phone.
Cleanup from the windstorm still in progress in Coeur d'Alene tonight. In fact, the storm caused a tree to land on the roof of Coeur d'Alene's oldest church, the Fort Sherman Chapel.
Yeah, it's been on the North Idaho College campus for about 140 years. KREM 2's Amanda Rowley was there when crews managed to remove that tree from the building. She is joining us live now from the chapel this evening. Amanda?
Crews made it their first priority today to get this tree removed from the Fort Sherman Chapel, Coeur d'Alene's oldest church. And just take a look at how huge this tree is. You can see the roots up from the ground here. Now, it took crews about 4 hours to get that last piece of the tree off from the side of this historic building. The community tonight and the Museum of North Idaho are hoping for the best when it comes to repairing this historic chapel.
My first thought was it looked like a tree was taking a nap on the chapel.
That's one way to put it, but in all honesty, Britt Thurman was heartbroken to see the damage to Coeur d'Alene's oldest church, the Fort Sherman Chapel.
It's really been a staple of the community since, Coeur d'Alene came about, and it gets used continuously. We have groups that rent it out. It's part of the Museum of North Idaho. So to have such a beautiful historic building have damage like this, it's really heartbreaking.
Thurman is the executive director of the Museum of North Idaho, which oversees the venue. While the roots of that ponderosa pine do not run very deep, the history of the chapel it's leaning on does. It was built 140 years ago by the U.S. Army, and it is still used today for meetings, weddings, and tours.
It's like having an old friend wounded, because for years I have been giving lectures inside the building, being a local historian and a historian for the museum.
Was it heartbreaking for you?
It is. Oh, listen, I really saw it in the paper, and then I dashed down here.
You could really tell how important this chapel is to the community by the continuous line of cars slowly going by and people crowded on the sidewalk to take photos. Thurman says the building is leaning so much they're not even able to open the front door. Now that the tree has been cleared away, they'll soon be able to assess what repairs need to be made to this historic jewel.
So we plan on taking great care of it so it can continue to be so for years and decades to come.
Now you can see just how much this tree made the building move, just this piece of the structure here on the side lifting up off these pieces here. Now the Museum of North Idaho maintains this historic chapel purely through donations, and they're going to need donations to help with repairs like this. So if you'd like to help, we have information on how you can donate on KREM.com. Reporting in Coeur d'Alene, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Thank you, Amanda. Today, miners in Wallace, Idaho were rescued after being trapped underground for nearly 24 hours. They were trapped after power went out due to that windstorm. The first group of 35 miners made it out of the mine at around 10 a.m. today. They came up in two groups because the mine shaft only holds 35 people. The miners, we are told, were not in danger when they were trapped and did have access to fresh air, food, and water. We do not have an exact number of how many people were trapped, but the number is greater than 35. Glad they are okay. My goodness. Well, now that the wind has settled down today, we got a lot more sunshine, but also some colder weather moved in.
Absolutely. Meteorologist Thomas Patrick is tracking all of that to let us know what we can expect as we go into the overnight hours. Thomas?
Yeah, the winds have certainly calmed down quite a bit. In fact, in the camera, which is out at Lake Coeur d'Alene, it has that anemometer at the bottom of the screen. Looks like it's standing completely still. We like to see that. And out in Spokane, we're reporting a 5-mile-per-hour wind. Much more gentle as of this hour than it was at this point yesterday. Temperatures largely in the 30s. That's still slightly above average for this time of year, but at least we have fairly calm weather over the western U.S. to give us a break from that wind that we experienced yesterday. As for tomorrow, more of the same small chance, of a wintry mix in those morning hours. Might spit out a few snowflakes, but shouldn't be a large issue overall. But there will be small chances for precipitation at least a couple days for this weekend. Have more on that in a few minutes.
All right, Thomas, thank you very much. We do have some breaking news for you tonight, letting you know that President-elect Joe Biden has actually just announced a major coronavirus relief package.
Yeah, it is a $1.9 trillion plan aimed at speeding up vaccines, reviving the economy, and reopening schools. It'll be called the American Rescue Plan. Under the new plan, people could receive an additional $1,400 in direct payments. Unemployment insurance would pay an additional $400 weekly, and the federal minimum wage would increase to $15 an hour. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said they would move quickly to pass legislation and get it to Biden's desk for his signature.